COVID. So you have COVID.
I have COVID.
And I have worse off. So this is kind of our dynamic anyway. All of these things are traumatic, and we're just laughing through them.
We're so immature.
Right, we're just childish. But anyway.
Right.
Okay, so you get COVID.
Yeah. And I was just so disappointed because I was about to start the second round, and I'm having all these stops along the way, and then I get COVID. But they wanted me to heal for longer, so they were like, "Well, you've been through a lot. I want you to heal and start in January instead of in December."
Okay.
And I was like adamant about like, I'm fine. Like, I want to start in December. Like, I'm thirsty to get pregnant.
Yeah.
And then I ended up getting COVID, and it was just like, oh, okay, let me chill.
Right.
Because I would have been in the middle of the IVF when I got it. I got it like 2 days before Christmas, and the cycle was supposed to start like on the 14th or something.
So that was fortunate.
So it was fortunate, yeah.
Right.
God's plan. January comes, I'm able to do IVF, and it all worked out.
It all worked out.
Right.
So it was a happy ending, which is awesome. Because you don't always hear stories that are quite so positive or that end up being okay. And I'm extremely happy. I'm elated because having all of those surgeries, one of the things that I said was, are you sure you want to have another surgery? That's somebody, going inside of you again after like basically monthly. And so my own personal fear was, what is that going to do for the actual like fertility process? And what if it doesn't work this time, how does that impact next time?
Sometimes they can go into your uterus to the point that it's not healthy.
I've heard stories. There was a series on MSNBC about Black women and fertility and telling stories about fibroids and all sorts of challenges and how we don't always get the same treatment as others and things to watch out for. And a woman said that she had so many surgeries that basically she wound up being deemed infertile. So it's a real fear.
And that's so sad. Like I can't even imagine that when you're having the surgeries to try, and then you've had so many because they're recommended.
Right.
And then
what does that do to you, and what does that do to your psyche?
Right. So I feel very blessed and very fortunate, and we, the first time we were clear to try, we tried. And even that is like, once they put your embryo in, and you have to wait like 10 days to see if it actually stays or implants. And so it all worked out. But I still have fibroids.
These are fibroids that are new?
No, the one orange
is still there.
He's still there.
Well, why was your fertility specialist okay with that one remaining, but needed the other ones to be gone?
Because the other ones were inside of my uterus.
Got it. This is outside.
Where they were putting the baby, and this one's outside. So I have 3 currently. The one dominant one, and then I have 2 that are in the wall, but they're small.
Outside of the uterus, though.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And so in order to remove those, because the surgeries that I had, again, were vaginal, non-invasive-ish.
Right. Myomectomy.
To get these removed, I would have to have an incision in my stomach, get them removed.
Through a laparoscopy or have a laparoscopic surgery.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because it never bothered me, and in this one, maybe it was an issue when it came to the fertility, because that was the one that kind of prompted the IVF as being an option. But other than that, again, it's not disruptive.
Okay.
It doesn't bother me,
and it doesn't bother you now being pregnant either.
No, and it's not growing, thank God. Not at the rate of the baby, or where they would need to do any emergency C-sections or premature delivery. So it's kind of up there chilling,
doing its own thing.
But I want it. It's like I just want it out.
Yeah. Do you think that you'll get the surgery after?
I don't know.
Not unless it bothers you.
Yeah, if it starts bothering me, but what I've been told is that if I need a C-section for any reason, it has a stem or a neck, so they could cut it out while I'm getting a C-section.
Okay.
But my doctor, who is an amazing Black woman, is like, well, I'm not going to do a C-section just for the fibroid, which is good. That's actually a good thing that they're not just prompting a C-section just because.
Which is also something that happens, and as a birth doula, that's music to my ears. I love your doctor, and I don't know her. Because you don't hear that a lot. Not most, because I can't say most. I haven't dealt with most, but you hear a lot of women say, my doctor suggested I get a C-section just in general. So
I mean, I don't have many friends who gave birth without a C-section.
Same.
Except for maybe two. I think two friends that I can think of. All of the rest of them, it was all C-sections.
Yeah.
That, so I appreciate that from her. And if I'm fortunate enough to have a not natural, they're all natural.
Right.
All births are natural. A vaginal delivery, then fine. Yeah. But if I need a C-section, then cut this sucker.
Okay, so now that we have this wonderful outcome and everything is working out and you are delivering a beautiful baby in October.
Yes.
If you could have gone back and had this process play out differently, what do you think could have been done better for you, or how could you personally have managed this process a little differently from 2013 to 2022?
I wish there had been more focus or attention to it, monitoring it along the way, perhaps. Because when I was diagnosed, it was just, you have it, it's fine. There's nothing that can be done. And then I kind of just didn't think about it. Like your teas from October Lotus and steams help reduce them in size, or help aid that process. And if I would have known, that could have been something that I could have done sooner. Maybe I wouldn't have had as many. If I would have just been cognizant of the one I have and how it's growing and how it's developing. I still don't know what causes it, but I know that
no one does.
You have some, products that can help reduce them in size. So I presume it would help prevent as well.
Not necessarily preventatively, because fibroids are typically inherited. So you usually, like my mom had fibroids. And I have fibroids, and many of the women in my family have fibroids. But there is no medical reason that we know that fibroids exist. It is believed that it comes from hormonal imbalance. Doctors won't necessarily say that that's a true contributing factor. It's just kind of a hypothesis. So it doesn't necessarily work preemptively, but they do work if you have them and you've been diagnosed. And I'm not saying they work for everybody, but everybody that I know who has used them, it's worked for, and myself. I've been able to shrink my own fibroids. I've been able to, I don't have any more than 2. There have only been 2, and they have basically gone from 2.5 centimeters down to 0.5 centimeter. And so that's basically the way that it works.
That's my only wish. I just wish I wish that there would have been more care.
Right.
Even if there was nothing that could be done, but just so that by the time I was ready, this wasn't a shock and surprise to me. Again, soft plug on Orem, because we offer, the whole point is offering better beauty options, but the 75% of products that are marketed to Black and brown women are considered toxic, and those toxins directly relate to hormone disruptors.
Absolutely.
And so I'm not saying that, the skincare routine that you have is causing your fibroids, but it's not helping.
No.
What you put on your body is also contributing to some of the toxins in your body. You are interested in getting some better skincare, hair care, cosmetic, wellness. We also sell October Lotus on our platform. That's what it's about, and hopefully that can help Black and brown women in their journey as well.
Yeah, and I have to say, I switched over to a couple of different Orem products. I tell her all the time the products that I love, but I definitely know, just based on having endometriosis. I know one of the vendors, and she created her product because she was finding that, using mainstream products basically exacerbated some of her symptoms.
Yeah.
And so she needed something for herself. And I love that. And I love that you carry those.
Yeah.
So another plug for Orem. You know now. Is there any advice that you would give to young women who may be going through this process, or even women in general who may be experiencing the same thing that you experienced, or even the medical field, medical professionals? Is there anything that you would say to them or that you would like for them to do differently?
So I would say for the medical community, it feels like because these are benign and they're non-cancerous, they kind of fly under the radar of importance. And maybe because statistically we have them more commonly, it may be like, oh, it's just par for the course.
Right.
Kind of, part of your journey as being a woman is that you may have some fibroids, but you're fine. And I would just say, help us as women understand what it really means, because even through my journey, like I still don't fully understand what caused it, what I can do at this point to prevent it. The ones in my lining, like, are those gonna get bigger? Are there any challenges? I have my checkups with the doctor now that I'm pregnant, and my questions, and sometimes they kind of laugh at my questions, but I'll be like, well, is it gonna smush the baby? Like, is the fibroid gonna smush him?
But that's not an unreasonable question.
And they kind of laugh.
You're not a doctor.
Yeah. And so it's just making sure that the patients understand, even if you as a medical professional are thinking it's no big deal.
Right.
It's a big deal to us. It's something that's in my body that's not supposed to be there.
Right.
And it's affecting my body.
And I had to have surgery to have it removed. So obviously it's dangerous enough.
Right. You wouldn't put a baby in there.
Right.
With it being
right.
there.
So to think that I wouldn't be worried about it is kind of crazy.
Right. And I would say for women, be considerate and intentional about your family planning. Again, I was I'm avoiding the whole thing. It was to the point, like, me and my friends, we would on Mother's Day be like, congratulations, you made it another year. But if you are considering, which a lot of us kind of think we just have time.
And you think you just have the ability.
Yeah, you have time, you have the ability. When it happens, it's gonna happen. Just being proactive about what that means. Do you want to have children?
Right.
Go see if you have some fibroids and work with the doctor. Make them explain to you what that means. Because I didn't make them explain. I just kind of took it and was like, okay, I have fibroids. There's nothing you can do. But I wish I would have asked, okay,
more probing questions.
Do I need to do anything if I'm planning to have a baby? And back then it wasn't on my mind, but I just want us to think about it more intentionally. I would recommend egg freezing early on, because a lot of people, that's a process too. If you have to do IVF and you're going through this journey and making sure you have enough in your reserve and your follicles, and now Black women are bossing up, and we're waiting longer.
Yeah.
And so just make sure that if this is something that you even maybe want to do,
right, that
you are proactive about your family planning so that you have options.
Absolutely. I didn't learn I knew about freezing eggs, but I think it was just kind of becoming popular. Or at least it was just becoming popular in my personal realm. Maybe in my mid to almost late 30s, and I didn't even consider the process until I was 38 years old.
Yeah.
Not
and I thought about
it. Not that you can't do it.
Yeah, you can still.
But I probably would have done it in my early 30s.
Yeah.
If
late 20s, early 30s, depending on what you want to do with your career. And again, I think it's something that is very common with other races, where it's just like, if you're on this career path, it's like you're 26 and it's like, okay, well, let's freeze your eggs so that you can do this.
Yeah. But we can't share that we can share information we don't have.
Facts.
So if I'm getting advice from you and you're like, put me on game, then that's wonderful. But if you don't know it, how can you give it to me? And I believe that other races probably have that information. Their doctors may be more proactive about providing that information. I didn't have an amazing doctor until that point in my life. And so that amazing doctor is the one who made the recommendation, thankfully.
So and I think what you're doing is great with even having these conversations, because a lot of it is just around like word of mouth and exposure. And once we know better, we can do better. So the more we talk about it, we realize, you're not the only one. You're not alone. These are different scenarios and different outcomes. And I think that's great to showcase and have people understand like what their options are. And how to have these conversations early on with family, friends, and your doctors.
Absolutely. And we can tell our younger cousins, we can tell our nieces, we can tell our daughters, so that we're also at a place where we're not at a disadvantage later. And not in a way where we're saying, you need to have a baby, you better go ahead and have a baby. I had a baby at 26, so why haven't you had a baby? And that's not a diss to anybody. It's literally just, I know I've heard it. I'm sure that there are other people who have heard those things, but so that we can stop saying those things and be more human about, even if you're not ready, here are some options for you. Let me tell you, as a woman, here's what you can do. Right.
And I've heard, my family, a lot of people have like, oh, I thought you didn't want kids.
Yes.
And it's just like, no, I just didn't want to do it by myself.
I didn't want to do it by myself. I didn't have the right person. I didn't feel, and I wasn't prioritizing my career necessarily.
Not necessarily, but I had a good career.
I had a good career, and I was having a good time.
I was having a good time.
I was enjoying my life.
Having a good time. I was having a good time. And I was also in, like, personally, I was in a long-term relationship where it just felt like this was gonna be my person, together, and it'll happen when it happens.
That's exactly why we're cosmic twins, because we thought the exact same thing. It wasn't true at all.
So proactivity, ask questions, figure out what's going on, and know your options, because you have options.
You do. They're out there. Well, Bridget, thank you so much for sharing your story. Absolutely. I think your story is really important. You are one of the few people I know who has this story, but I think that there are many women who will experience it or have experienced it. And again, if you hear more about situations like this, then we're normalizing it. And also, if there are any red flags in this story that sound like familiar to someone or someone you love, you've heard it and you kind of know what to watch out for. So thank you for being completely open and honest and sharing all of this. Absolutely. And I truly appreciate you.
Thank you for the invite.
Of course. So with that, I will see you guys next time. Thank you for tuning in.